For the second example, question B is a quadratic function. So as we know that quadratic function is not one function, but how we're going to sketch a graph? Firstly, we have to use a completing the square. Okay, from the completing the square, we can get to know that the turning point. So bracket square minus small bracket square is constant. So the function b is a -2. So it will become -1 x minus 1. b divided by 2. So the result will be x minus 1 squared, -1 plus 2. So from here, what is the turning point? The turning point will be from here is a 1. From here is also 1. So the turning point is 1, 1. So we can sketch a graph. Because of the a is positive, from here we get to know a is greater than 0. So it must be open upward with the turning point 1, 1. So x equal to 0, y equal to 0 is around here. Okay, by using horizontal line test, so there are two intersection points. So the same thing we just using by using horizontal line test. And do not forget we have to label the horizontal line as y equals to k. So y equals to k intersect the function at 2 points. Okay, therefore it is not 1 to 1. So this is using horizontal line test, 1 to 1 function. Okay, so restricted domain will be based on the turning point. Okay, the restricted domain will be based on the turning point. So how are we going to write it? So we just write down restricted domain are 1 to infinity or negative infinity until after we already restrict the domain, so we need to find the inverse. Okay, so we rewrite again the function fx in completing the square form and using composite function method in getting the inverse function. So from here we will replace the x as a f inverse, because f inverse is an inner function. F inverse minus 1 squared plus 1 equals to x. So we move the 1 to the right hand side, it becomes x minus 1. So the left hand side is still in the square form. So as we know that we would like to let the f inverse as a subject, so we square root it. F inverse minus 1 equals to square root x minus 1, but please bear in mind it will be positive, negative, because there are two possible outcomes after we square root. Right? So now the problem is we should choose positive or we should choose the negative. So how to make the differences between these two functions that we should choose? So we have to base on the restricted domain. So the first one, for the 1 to infinity, so we know that x is greater or equals to 1. Therefore, the f inverse also have to follow greater or equals to 1. So f inverse minus 1 must be greater or equal to 0. So for this case, we have to choose positive. Okay, therefore we choose f inverse minus 1 equals to positive square root x minus 1. In other case, for negative infinity until 1 means that x is less than 1, automatic f inverse also follow less than 1. Therefore, f inverse minus 1 must be less than 0. So in this case, we have to choose negative. So we will choose f inverse minus 1 equals to negative square root x minus 1. So we can conclude that for the domain 1 to infinity, the f inverse is square root x minus 1 plus 1. So this is the inverse function, and automatically for the domain less than or equals to 1, the f inverse is equals to negative square root x minus 1 plus 1. So the different part is we choosing positive or negative. But the way finding inverse is just the same. Okay, when we finding inverse, we have two possible outcome, and we choose based on the restricted domain. So now we have to write the domain and range. Okay, so this one automatic, the domain would be 1 to infinity, and it's the range of the inverse, and the range it would be from 1 to infinity as well. Okay, because it's the same, because from the graph, right, like this, so the turning point is 1 1, so the right hand side greater or equals to 1, the values of y does not change. Okay, it's still the same. So same goes to here, the domain would be negative infinity until 1 equals to the range of inverse, the range still the same, 1 to infinity. So this case already mentions that only the domain restricted, the range is still followed by the original graph. Okay, that's the y values. Sekarang kita tengok yang ni. So selepas restricted domain, quadratic function ini kita asingkan jadi 2, divide become 2 part. Okay, so untuk yang graph pertama, kita tengok dulu domain dia adalah 1 to infinity. So kita pilih yang ini. Okay, so 1 to infinity. So semasa S1 dia 1, kebetulan dia di sini. Okay, this is 1, this is 1. So it will be here. So dia akan menaik ke atas. Okay, so for the inverse, okay, for the inverse dia pun 1 1. So for sure they will meet here. Okay, 1 1 it will be meet here. Okay, the function is a square root function. So square root function, this is a positive. So it will be going up. So this will be f inverse, and this will be fx. So they still look symmetrical. Okay, so for the other one, the domain is less than 1. So we still label 1 1. So if less than 1, the graph will be looks like this. So slowly we make it as this. Okay, so this is the graph. So we make it more clear. Okay, and now we look at the function. The function is negative square root, so it means it will be going down. So this is the f inverse, this is the fx. So they still look symmetrical with respect to x. So this is how we sketch the two graphs on the same axis based on their domain and range.